Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Peter Pittendry and today we reminisce about the good old days. I'm joined by Lerato Malekutu, PR and Communication Specialist at leratomalekutu.com. I had the pleasure of reconnecting with an old school friend and hearing more about her travel adventures and long tenure career as Media Manager for Cricket South Africa. Please welcome my friend Lerato. Alrighty, so we're going live and we're joined by Lerato Malekutu, one of the only people in my early childhood that's really kind of been in the spotlight for the last 10, 15 years with her with her achievements
Stop it.
I remember the last time I saw you. I'm very apologetic of this. I need to start out ahead, but I was watching the cricket with Rogan Schulze at Wanderers, and it was a pink day. And as most of the fans, they have one too many castles in them. So I might have kind of greeted you with a lot of enthusiasm, with the alcohol
I
flowing
remember
through.
that quite vividly.
Do you?
No, you
Well,
were decent. You
oh,
were
was
decent.
I? Okay, well
Mhm.
that's good. I apologize if I wasn't, but
I don't know how the rest of the day ended, but when I saw you, you were still
good.
okay.
We must have met fairly early in the morning. Cool. Lerato, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself. I mean, as briefly or as long as you like. I haven't seen you probably in about 10 years, so go ahead.
Oh man, I hate this. Okay, well, I'm Lerato Malekutu. My claim to fame is that I went to high school with Peter, so you
Is
know,
that your claim to fame?
and
Goodness me.
and primary school. It was primary school as well, right?
Was primary school as well, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
but no, I made my way out of the trenches of Zanin to Joburg,
right.
where I studied journalism with the aim of being a sports journalist.
Hmm.
And yeah, to cut a long story short, I was media manager for the Proteas for nearly 10 years, traveled the world watching cricket, which is really such a blessing and a real dream come true.
Hmm.
And until last year, I decided that, you know what, I'm done with the Proteas. They've broken my heart so many times, still no World Cup.
Oh
So
no.
I know I resigned, and now I'm sort of doing a lot of things in the PR, sports PR and com space, doing a
Hmm.
lot of consultancy, player management, and a few other things. So yeah, life's good
You
despite COVID.
forgot a very, very important thing that I think the viewers will be very interested in knowing, and I'm sure they do know already. But you were a thriving cricketer on your day. I remember. I still have one of your,
Oh
not yours, it's my sister's who
my
played
word!
with you, one of
Yes,
the
and
first team tops. Um,
it's
I
so
keep it
funny that I
as.
found mine the other day as well.
Oh really?
Yes, I was number
I
8, and
oh
those were the
really?
golden years, eh? Those
Oh,
were the
so
golden
you were
years.
8 and Leanne
Oh
was
yeah.
7.
Yes. There you go.
Uh, I remember when I was at school, I got malaria and couldn't play rugby for about 6 months. And then afterwards, I was never a good cricketer, so I never played cricket. But I scored a couple of your games, and I remember those days quite fondly.
Yeah.
Watching,
Oh wow.
it's nice as a big brother to kind of watch your sister play cricket because as I'm sure you would have done as well with your brother. Leanne was just she was my ball machine. We could never really afford one, so she would just chuck
Yes.
balls at me, and she got fairly good. She had a quite a strong arm, and
She
uh,
did really. Yeah. It's proper arm. Proper arm. Yeah. Gosh,
but
how is she?
she's doing well. She's
Uh,
in the UK at the moment.
oh, okay.
Yeah, she's racked up during the lockdown quite a bit of leave. So I think she's got 40 or 50 days leave that she's going to use now and come visit us in South Africa. So I'm trying to surprise her with I should probably not say this because she'll watch this, but Leanne, we're going to surprise you with a road trip down the garden route. So come and join us very quickly.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
nice.
yeah.
That's awesome.
And your brother, how's he doing? All well?
Yeah, he's well as well. He sort of commutes between Zanin and Joburg,
Really?
businessman type thing. So
Yeesh.
he does a lot of things, but he's very well.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
he's
fantastic.
good. Yeah.
Mm. Sorry, I just wanted to touch on something that you mentioned. Still no World Cup, and I say that so nonchalantly, and I apologize. It must be quite a sore point for you and so many other South Africans. But this thing about facing adversity, especially now during the world pandemic, and how sort of adversity breeds resilience, and you would have, having resigned from a 9 or 10 year career, now going into a startup. How has that sort of been for you, and how have you sort of tackled that mammoth task?
Yeah. I think, when I sort of made the decision that I wanted to resign, I'd sort of reached a point where, I was doing it for 10 years and I really wanted to just grow and do other things and, challenge myself a bit more.
Mm,
So it was hard. I mean, making that jump, you don't even know to what abyss you're jumping into, but
mm,
it's just about just taking that step. So yeah, I did it. I think once you do it, you realize you weren't really scared of anything because the challenges will come. But if you're following like your passion and that's sort of what drives you. I mean, half of the time I don't even know what I'm doing. Not for what I'm doing. It's just that I've had to learn so many new things. So,
mm,
you sort of have this blank canvas and you're doing all these new things. And sometimes you just navigate them like with your eyes closed, but you still
mm,
get it done. And it's like those small little victories that, give purpose to what I'm doing, and also give purpose to my decision.
mm.
So, I mean, it's not easy. Like, I mean, some days are harder than most, but it's rewarding knowing that, I've pushed myself and I'm growing and I'm really loving life. So yeah, that's sort of how I look at it.
That's amazing. And speaking about loving life, I must share. I hope you don't mind, but we're obviously, I follow you on Instagram, and I had a very similar, I wouldn't say similar experience to you, but I proposed to my wife on a hike in Lesotho about 2.5 years ago, and
Uh,
I hope that's correct. I'm terrible with the timeline. But I'd planned this extravagant hike. We spent quite a bit of time in Lesotho before that, and we had a big race coming up. So I wanted to do a recce of the race. So we booked into a nice lodge in the area, and then we hiked up for the day. And when you do hiking, your fingers swell up quite a bit because of the altitude. So I'd planned, and it's normally on the way down. So I'd planned to hike
mm.
up to this beautiful waterfall that I'd seen on their website. I did some route finding. I got to the top, and the bloody waterfall was dry, and just looked terrible. So I thought, okay, look, we'll hike down. There's a nice pool at the bottom, and I'll kind of we'll go for a swim after this long hike, and then I'll kind of dive in and swim up to her, and then just propose sporadically that way. I recorded the whole thing, but I wasn't wearing a shirt on, so I refused to release any of that footage anywhere that anyone can see and judge me. Um, but but you had a similar, or not a similar experience, but it seemed like you guys were also doing a bit of a hike somewhere extravagant. And because
Oh,
I'm interested in travel, can you share that
yes.
with us?
Well, we weren't really hiking. We were in Dubai
Hmm.
and sort of went on one of those like what do you call it, desert safaris.
Hmm.
So I mean, I had absolutely no idea, and yeah, I nearly fell over a sand dune. But I mean, I think traveling is also one of the things that we really love, like wherever we can, especially South Africa. That's one of our bucket lists now, is to really just get deep into South Africa because there's so many gems that people
Yes.
might highlight the more cheesy areas, but there's so many hidden gems around that we
Mm.
really really love going to.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of tourists now, especially during the lockdown and the phased opening of the tourism sector, a lot of the local travelers that might have looked outwards are looking into South Africa and our neighboring countries for a lot of travel. My wife and I were very fortunate in 2017. She was doing a community service year in a small little town in Vicksburg. It's about 5 minutes from the Lesotho border. So there wasn't much to do in Vicksburg. Sorry for all our friends listening from that area, but it's not an extravagant town. There's one little street that you drive through, and off that street there's like a couple of bakeries. Hence me not wanting to take off my or show anyone with my shirt off because I love. Um, and yeah, we spent 4 weekends there the whole year. The rest of the time we just traveled through South Africa. So we did each province. And then we went climbing in Boerfen, and we went hiking in the Drakensberg, and spent a lot of time in Lesotho and KZN and Limpopo. And I took her back to Limpopo and kind of took her through Zanin, and she was like, "Wow, okay, now I know what you were talking about when we grew up. It's it's beautiful, but the
Not much.
it's very different from the Cape.
Yeah.
Obviously,
And
it's
when did you
still
move to Cape Town?
sure. I moved to Cape Town probably about 7 or 8 years ago. I was
Oh,
do you remember Simon?
cop.
Yes. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I hope we don't get taken down for you swearing on the
I
podcast, but
know. Also, should I say it, shouldn't I?
no, I'm joking. I baited you there. I'm sorry. Um,
Ah,
but Simon and I were cycling to Hartbeespoort Dam, and we were probably about 50, 60 kilometers into the cycle. We were going from, he was staying somewhere in Joburg, and I was sitting behind him because he's quite a nice big guy to sit behind and break the wind.
feel
You
the
don't have to
wind.
work as hard. And I just heard gunshots. So I looked up, and there were two guys standing in the road with some sort of handguns, and they were just shooting at us. I was like, "What is happening?" And yeah, they pulled us over, pulled us off the bike, uh, stole all our kind of gear, all our equipment on us, and I was shocked. I
Oh my
mean, I
word.
didn't quite understand what was happening. And then shout out to Justin Conradi. He picked us up. I managed to flag down
Oh
a car
wow.
on the highway, and his number I've always known. He was my first. I think he had a cell phone. He was the first person in Unicorn to have a cell phone. So everyone I knew his number because we'd use it to make prank phone calls and whatnot. So I remember that number. My phone was obviously stolen, so I didn't even remember my parents' number or anything. So I phoned him, and he picked us up, and I think like a week later, I'd moved to the Cape. I phoned my boss and I said to look, it's the third or fourth time I've been mugged in Joburg. I seem to attract this kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, I'm out of here. So I moved to Cape Town and moved in with a couple of friends because I only gave them a week's notice. And then yeah, I stayed in Claremont for a while, and then I traveled in between that. I lived in Southeast Asia for a while, and did some traveling there, and then came back to Cape Town. I was here for about 6 months, and then I met my wife, and she was doing her community service in Lesotho. So I was like, oh, I have to move down now. I mean, I can't.
What?
Uh, yeah, so I moved to Vicksburg and stayed there for a year, and traveled, and then moved back to Cape Town about 2.5, 3 years ago.
Sure. Quite
Yeah.
the nomad.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's I've been very fortunate to travel a little bit, and it's yeah, it's been great to especially travel in South Africa and do a lot of Lesotho. We did a nice big hike through Lesotho while we were there for 10 days. So it's been nice. But sorry, I interrupted your story. So carry on. Tell me more.
Wait. Oh yes. Oh no, Dubai. That we were still at. I thought we'd long past that.
I'm sorry. I took you on a tangent there, but
You
we're
lost your
back.
train of thought.
I did. Sorry.
Yes. No, I finished the story now. That's well, just back to it, just traveling the world. It just opens up your senses, and just gives you such a different perspective.
Mm,
I think with the cricket, I was also really lucky, especially going to places that are so different to South
mm,
Africa. I'm sure Southeast Asia is similar, where Sri Lanka, India, Bangladesh, those sort of places where it's a completely different world, a completely
mm,
different way of living.
mm.
And yeah, we're really fortunate to experience that. I think you
Nice.
share the same sentiment.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And it's always interesting to me when you go into a small community and how a South African always seems to pop out of nowhere. I mean, traveling in remote areas, and then you hear an accent and you're like, pretty sure that's South African. Did
It's
you experience
it's
that at
it's
all?
definitely it's more in the like Australias and the UKs, because it's just so familiar.
Mm,
You can't really dismiss it. So it was always very comforting, but mostly in your sort of first world countries.
mm. Yeah, I'd never traveled. before, I mean, at school we played rugby in Pretoria and Joburg, but before that, I think Cape Tour was the last time I'd actually been to Cape Town.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
Imagine, remember that. Goodness.
And I didn't have a particularly nice Cape Tour. I was, not fond memories of Cape
Really?
Town. Yeah, I don't
Oh,
know what happened, but I decided someone talked me into shaving my head and leaving the top part of my head completely grown like this, and then on the side, and with the big ears and the big nose, it doesn't work. So everyone mocked me, and
someone.
it was terrible. I think I cried most of the Cape Town. But that was the last
Okay.
time I've been to Cape Town. So when I finished school, I went to the UK, and I lived there for a couple of years, and it was bizarre. I'd never, growing up in Zanin, and then my first international flight was to the UK, and then kind of just dropped off
Yeah.
there. I packed bread in Manchester for a while, and I was a bartender and a pastry chef and a whole
What?
bunch of odd jobs in the UK. And it was very interesting, and I loved it. But it was very different, and every trip I had, I could see how I changed and grown from those experiences. I mean, I'm sure with you and having been in the circles that you're in, you could see that in both you and the people around you.
No, definitely. I mean, if you go back, my first international trip was matric. I went on Rotary exchange to
Okay.
Germany,
Oh, nice. My sister went
and
on
like,
that.
did she?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Mm.
yeah, for 6 weeks, and it was just I was spoiled. I mean, first of all, you get there, it's freezing cold. There's snow, it's completely, I mean, Zanin there's no winter in Zanin.
No.
So it's just completely such a cultural shock. And also, they're not very friendly. So you're sort of trying to ask yourself, is it me maybe? Or, so many things just from what they eat and the way their mannerisms. And yeah, I think after that, sort of coming back and then going again, maybe a couple of years later, you sort of try to fit in more. I
Mm.
didn't really used to explore a lot when we just traveled. I guess I worked quite a bit. People also think that you're on holiday when you're traveling with the team, but there's also
Mm.
quite a bit of work. But the more I did it, the more I sort of got out of my shell, like if you're in India, just sort of interact a lot with the locals and just try to be immersed in the culture. And it's just, yeah, that's addictive for me. And that's
Yes.
why now
Yeah.
it's
We had an experience, myself and my ex and two of our South African friends. We were traveling through the south of Thailand, and I don't know if I've told this story before, so I won't go through the whole thing. But essentially, we were teaching for a while, doing a summer camp. So it's just a short 1 month teaching stint, and then afterwards you go back to your school where you were teaching. But our contract had finished, and we wanted to stay in the south. So one of the Thai teachers at the school said to us, "Look, he knows of a school about 3-4 hours away. Uh, Grab your bags. We'll take you down there." And we'll book you in. We'll set you up with contracts, and you can teach there for 6 months. And it was in Nakhon Si Tamarat. It's quite a far town, quite far south. So we jumped in the car, we left, and then about 3.5-4 hours, we started getting a little bit angsty, kind of knocking on the door. What's happening? We were in the back of a pickup truck, and he just kept driving and driving and driving. So we had his cell phone number, so we phoned him while he was in the car, and in broken English, he was like, "Don't talk to me. There's no job," and he hung up. So we were kind of apprehensive. So we phoned the school that we were working at to communicate with him and just figure out what was going on, because we were getting a little bit scared. And yeah, the partner agency phoned us back and said, "Listen, apparently the school that you were going to go to, the jobs have fallen through, and the guy's quite upset because he was going to get a kickback from it, and so he's now holding you ransom, and he wants us to pay for your
no.
safe return." And we're like, "What? What is happening?" And my dad is someone, after Taken came out, he was like obsessed with, kids traveling is a no-go. They
Yeah.
have to be with their parents. So I don't even think I've told him this story because of how crazy upset he got. But anyway, it was a back and forth between our agents and whatnot, and eventually he stopped. And I like to cook, so I had a Thai wok with me and a big Thai cooking knife. So I pulled these things out, and I just like I stood there and I was like, please just let us go, with a wok
Oh
and a
my
knife.
word.
And as I held it, the people kind of ran past me, escaped, and went, not escaped, but just jumped out the back of the pickup, ran to the main road, and we kind of just held it there. And then he got the idea, okay, I'm just going to turn around and leave and cut my
Let them
losses. So we
go.
were standing in the middle of Thailand, no idea where we were. It was a bizarre experience. Um,
Sure.
yeah, but
Wow.
yeah,
You should write a travel memoir. I'm sure you got a few good
you,
good anecdotes there.
most of them I'm too embarrassed to share because if I have to videograph it wouldn't sort of come across too. I was probably about 116 kilograms. I was this giant fat person that just
Ah,
ate fried rice and drank beer
ate your
most.
way through Thailand.
I definitely ate my way through Thailand. But yeah, it was a great experience. But it taught me so much about travel and about the people that you sort of surround yourself with. And I want to kind of get some insight from you, if you wouldn't mind sharing. South Africa, as I'm sure you would have experienced, and the people around you, super passionate about their sport. I I often sit and watch a game and I'm screaming at the TV and I'm like, why aren't you doing? But it's completely bizarre that you think that the players that you don't actually consider what they're going through and the pressures that they're going through and the work that they have to put in. I'm reading a very interesting book called Peak. It speaks a lot about sort of the health, nutrition, recovery, and the mindset that goes into professional sports, and the constant research that's been done. But could you speak a little bit more about the mindset element of it, and what the players go through, and how you kind of have to interface with that? Because I'm sure that a lot of people just want to talk to international players and see what they're going through, and your relationship with the players still needs to be maintained. But then there's also this public constantly trying to get information from you. How hard was that negotiating that?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's the one thing for me that, I always battled with it, because you get to know these guys so well, and
Mm,
they become your friends, but then you see and you open to all the scrutiny and like all the public, journalists, media, everybody, sort of having a go at them of a bad performance, over this, over that. And at the end of the day, they're just humans. And
mm,
I mean, I know you can't ever say to somebody who's an international player that when they go out there, they're not going to try give their best.
yeah.
That was like the no, what's the word I'm looking for? A non-negotiable. But you see how hard they work. Flip,
Mm,
some people, they don't sleep, they have anxiety, like I said, they're human. So now that they're on this sort of public platform, and like everybody's looking through them like a microscope, it's tough. And others sort of dealt with it differently. There are others who don't talk to him like on match day, or give him a few hours after the match before
sure.
you're gonna go and talk to them, or and then there are others that thrive, like talking to people and being around people all the time is a good distraction, because flip, they're so nervous and they just need to get away from my nerves. I'm just talking about purely like preparing for a match, before a match.
Yeah.
And so, okay, now I lost my train of thought. So help me out.
Just sort of the mindset that goes into preparing for the game and preparing
Yeah,
for
yeah.
and separating those two and the demands from the public. And then obviously, they're professional athletes, so they have these demands for themselves as well.
And it comes with the territory as well. That's the other thing.
Sure.
People will say, well, you get you you get paid all this money, you're international player, so therefore you must not have feelings, therefore you cannot retaliate, therefore you have to be a certain way. But
Mm,
it's very hard, and sometimes some guys aren't able to be consistent in that. Sometimes they'll say you coming after a match and you've just lost and you had like a really crap game, and there are
mm,
all these fans waiting outside just for an autograph,
mm,
and you are just feeling like the pits and the world's closing in on you. But because it's part of your job, you have to get out of that. And sign the autograph, smile, take the picture, and be happy. But inside, you're just like, oh, I just want to get in my hotel room and close the door and just, you know, wish this feeling away. So, my word, that for me was the most painful thing. I mean, that 2015 World Cup, the heartbreaking one in New Zealand, they were all heartbreaking, but that one just broke me because, you know, just coming back into the change room and seeing grown men with families crying, like
Mm.
it was just heartbreaking. But then what is the word that comes out the next day?
Oh,
Chokers, this, that, you know.
yeah.
And it's just like, that's so unfair, you know. They're human beings, but some will say it comes with the territory, so you know, you just sort of take it.
Mm. Yeah, you know, and this has been thrown around for years in South Africa, but I think because the people seem to kind of associate the sporting environment with you know the good elements of South Africa and the and there's so many more. But I myself, for the better part of maybe 5 6 years after school, I would not miss
Mm.
a cricket game. I would not miss a rugby game. I'm a proud Sharks supporter and always will be. I love.
Poor you. I'm kidding. No, you guys had a good season. I'm so
Had a
sorry for
very good
COVID. You
season.
started so well.
I know, but you know that just tends to happen with the Sharks. I mean, we get injuries in the good times, and now there's a
Timing.
pandemic. Shame. But you know, you get so attached to the sport that you find pride in because you know I traveled with I met a group, a New Zealander and a Canadian couple that were traveling through Cape Town, and they were looking for. Uh, a place to stay for the night, and we happened to be driving, and they were playing ukulele underneath on Signal Hill under one of the platforms, and we went down and had a glass of wine, and we heard them, so we called them over, and they're like, "Yo, we're kind of just backpacking through Africa, looking for a place to stay tonight." So I invited them over, and the biggest reason I invited them over was because he was a diehard New Zealander rugby fan and cricket fan, and we had a lot to talk about. So you know, it's such a common point and such a love and interest for a lot of the South African public. We tend to attach our moods and
Mm.
passions to the team. I mean, it must be incredibly difficult for the guys to. I mean, I'm sure they know that, and you having to kind of deal with a lot of that. I mean, how did you kind of get through that? Because I want to talk a little bit more about running. I know you. It seems like you
Oh,
got into running quite a
I'm
bit.
back into it.
Oh,
Yeah.
are you? Fantastic.
I yeah. Um, how they deal with it? Sure. I don't know. I mean, that's why sometimes, you know, you do have a lot of I don't like to say psychologists, but you know, guys, people in the team that they can open up to and
Mm,
sort of be given perspective. I mean, when you start playing at a young age, like 19, 20, by the time you're in your 30s, you've sort of learned to manage that expectation that you place upon yourself and the whole world places on you. So
hmm.
you deal with it so much better. But yeah, I don't think you can ever really learn to deal with criticism.
Yeah.
I don't I don't think it's in a if you're human, it's just one of those things. I personally feel that, you know, you're never gonna be have that thicker skin to not be
Mm.
able to be affected by it. So you sort of just learn to cope with it and move on to the next.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm terrible with it. I go for a run with my wife, and she does 127 half marathons and stuff, and
Wow.
I try and keep up with her, which I don't, and then I end up running with a little puppy. We have a small toy poodle and then a big standard poodle, so we do a lot of our runs together. So I normally get kept with daycare running with a little poodle, and then I'll finish the run, and she'll say something like, "Oh, well done! You kind of." Uh, it's been only 45 minutes that I've been waiting for you. And I'll be like, oh, are you criticizing me? You know, so that's, I mean, I can't imagine dealing with some of the sort of
Yeah,
pressures as a professional athlete. But did you use running and kind of outdoor activities as a release for the pressures that you faced? You seem to sort of enjoy that
definitely.
on tour.
Definitely. I mean, it's also a little bit of a routine, if that makes sense. So,
Hmm.
I mean, when you're on away on tour, then no day is the same. You hotel living, it's all these things. But the running, we had a club, and you sort of are sharing these things, and obviously you also don't want to eat your way through a country, you know. But it's definitely the best release, and also the best way to see a country.
Mm. Yeah, I remember I went on after I traveled through Southeast Asia. I went back, I can't remember when, but I was working for a teach abroad company, and they sent me on a 2 month trip through Thailand, Vietnam, and China. And I was staying in Thailand, and it was so warm. And I tried to set myself goals like run every day, and then you can eat the fried rice, and you can have the tom yum,
Yeah.
and the things that you enjoy. Now living with a dietitian, that was a completely wrong thing to do because I was eating far too much. So I was never losing weight, but that's a different story. So I would plan these runs at like 2 o'clock in the morning because it was so warm, and Thailand's quite busy and dangerous, and there's bikes all over the place. So at 2 in the morning, the tourists have gone to bed. You can still see a couple of them coming out of the pubs and
The
whatnot,
bars.
but the majority of the street vendors are done, and you can go for runs. And it was interesting seeing a completely different part of Thailand, that you'd looked at during the day with all the hustle and bustle. Now the only people with you are sort of stray dogs and rats and snakes running across the road. But we
Oh,
also we also got a nice running club together, myself and three of the other teachers in the area. And every morning we'd wake up at 2, go for a run, come back, go for a swim in the ocean, and then sort of grab another couple of hours of sleep, and then start your day off like that. And it was a nice way to kind
yeah.
of just reset and get a bit of structure because things are changing all the time. Um, what are you? I mean, I know that your career has been a 10-year one. What are the highs and lows of your career?
Oh, okay, well, I already told you the low.
2015 World Cup. That was the
Yeah,
worst.
for me, yeah, definitely. Um, it's just because I still believe that we're going to win it.
Mm,
That was like our best team ever.
yeah.
Anyways, story for another day.
No. I
Um,
mean, if you wanna go through that, I'm happy. I'd love to. I don't have any sort of backsided insight into what it was like as spending
I
time so
think
close
we'd
with that
need
group.
longer than an hour, so and maybe a stronger beverage.
I
So
see.
yeah,
Okay.
next
Well,
time.
next time I'll invite you. You're in Joburg, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So when we do a wine tasting, a week ahead of time, I'll send you a bottle of,
there we
uh,
go.
of of wine, and we can share it, and the winemaker can take us through that, and you can tell us about that experience
Exactly. Yeah.
and bribery.
A lot of the highs was definitely when the team won the number one mace.
Hmm.
That was in 2012, and it sort of was such a. The group started off like we spent a lot of time together, probably 3 months.
Hmm.
We went to Amsterdam on a camp. We climbed up the Swiss Alps. Like
I
that was
saw
so
that
hard.
you did a
Yeah.
canyoneering trip as well. That must have been
Yes,
incredible.
all part. It was mind blowing. One of the best trips ever. And got to the UK. You know how the UK press are just putting pressure on the team. Oh, they went there for this. What are they going to do here? And but then like the team was just on another level. Like that was when Hash scored 300, and even though there were a lot of other scandals, like with Mark Barcher's injury, not a
Yes.
scandal but tragedy, but KP Peterson on our case. But the
Wasn't
team
that
really
the
stuck
KP's
together.
gate or whatever it was? I can't remember what was
Techsgate,
happening. Yeah,
Techsgate,
yeah, yeah.
Techsgate, yeah.
That's it.
And yeah, but at the end, they won that final hour of the last test match at Lords to get the number one test rank mace thingy. And yeah, that was definitely a roller coaster, but very, very like entertaining and definitely a highlight.
Mm. And how difficult is it for you? Because I'm sure that the I mean, you have the public demand for players and insight, and it comes with an aspect of confidentiality. I'm someone who could never be in a position like that because I would just share everything. I have verbal diarrhea. So, um, how difficult is it to sort of maintain those stories and share? I mean, I'm sure you share with your close friends and family, um, but to not talk about it and make you know. sort of statements that you're not quite sure? Because having been with the team for so long, I'm sure there are
Yeah.
things like that. I mean, is it quite difficult for
No,
you, or have
I've
you?
had to learn to bite my tongue. I mean, throughout the journey, and especially for my career, I mean, being the spokesperson and the media manager, you always filter things, I
Mm,
guess.
mm-hmm,
So I've sort of learned to filter things. It's actually very easy. But I mean, if people have good intentions, I love sharing stories because,
mm,
I think people just see these guys as these brilliant sports people, but they're actually brilliant human beings. And for
mm.
me, that's the foremost. And that's probably why I stayed there for so long because, excuse me, I was working with amazing human beings, and those are the stories that I would like to share, so people get a better insight into them as humans and not just cricketers.
Yes. Yeah, I remember, I think Dale Steyn had his first test match, or his first game at for the Titans. And do you remember Mrs. Lee?
Yes, and we
Yeah.
drove there. You
Yes.
also drove with us.
Yeah,
That
and we
was
stayed we stayed in a weird house.
yeah.
I don't want to say weird, but I can't really remember it. But we stayed up
I
all night making
do.
signs, and um,
Oh my god! Look
I
at that! You
I
just
don't
took me back.
I don't fully remember what happened, but I know Mrs. Lee was there, and she I think she had a connection with Dale. He may have stayed with her for a while, or something.
Yes,
I don't want to speak about
yes,
that too much, but um, we were lucky enough to just sort of tag along. Mrs. Lee was great. She'd always give us. I remember her husband went to Mexico and came back, and he had tequila, and we were studying for our final exams, and we went over to her house, and we were so stressed we couldn't learn. And she's like,
yeah,
"Yeah, have some tequila and just unwind." And I mean, it was a tiny bit, and we were like, "This is the
yeah.
best teacher in the world."
Yeah. And you always have cricket on in the classroom. That
Yes, yeah,
was
it
yeah,
was amazing, and she was so excited, and we went, and I think we had coffee or something with him before the first before the game, and it was strange, like seeing someone who'd worked so hard and been through, as I'm sure any professional sportsman goes through, and then experiencing the sort of things that he's experienced after, and the accolades and the amazing
yeah,
achievements, just seeing someone go from that to an absolute like world class cricketer. It's interesting, and it puts things into perspective a little bit, that through hard work and obviously a lot of skill, uh, those kinds of things are achievable, and that was nice to see, especially from a place like Zanin or Palabora.
yeah.
It was quite inspiring
We'll
to
still
see.
claim him. Calabora doesn't have him. Sanina has him, eh?
Do you know what irritates me? I played a little bit of club cricket, or not club cricket. It was like it was a Sunday league. It was while we were studying, so we were drinking far too much in the evenings and then playing on the Sunday. It wasn't anything good, but I made the
Yeah.
stupid mistake of wearing a Morensky top. And I went into bat, and I'm fairly sure, and I'll claim this from Unicorn Days, as the person who had the most ducks in one season. We played something like 16 games, and I got 15 ducks. So I was by no means a cricketer, and
Oh wow.
yeah, I was terrible. And now I play club cricket, and I went in at 8, and they're like, "Guys, be careful! He went to school with Dale. I mean, he must be an incredible cricketer." They bowled like 2 or 3 balls for me, and they're like, "Okay, don't worry about it. It's fine." So I never wore my Morensky top playing any sort of Sunday league
And
ever again.
oh man, oh man. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
but
times.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, do you want to share a little bit? I mean, just in starting a new business now, what is it exactly that you're doing? Can you share much? I mean, have you gone into like player management, or are you going into more PR for big organizations associated to sporting teams? Um, uh, I know you were
Yeah, you
always.
summed it up.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, so I mean, the niche for me is sports PR. So definitely working with brands that are associated to sports teams, but also with federations.
Hmm.
I've also been doing, some work with foundations as well. So, helping them get their stuff off the ground
Hmm.
in terms of brands and PR and PR of some of the work they do. So that's sort of the core business. But
Hmm.
there's also some player management that I do, especially the women's team, they don't get a lot of support. So
Mm.
I certainly help a few of them with some of the endorsements and, just brand and those sort of things. Then, there's a lot, but those are like the core things that I do.
Nice. And if you could decide on one thing that you wanted to focus all your time on once you've become established, which I'm sure it's been what 6-7 months since you've
Yeah,
started. So so 10 years down the
4 months
line. Oh, nice. So 10 years down the line, what's the goal?
to be a media mogul.
Awesome. I
The
can.
goal is to definitely have a massive agency that's got this niche that's, you're world renowned for sports PR and communications, and just, being an industry leader
Mhm.
in event management as well. I mean, we've got so many cool events that are coming in the next few years. British and Irish Lions, we've got the Netball
Yes.
World Cup, we've got the T20 Women's World Cup. So, those are also platforms that I definitely want to get into and,
Mm.
just, make South Africa great again.
Oh, you just dropped a Donald Trump on us. That's fantastic. Uh, is there some hidden political ties there with the
No, no,
purple trying to? Oh, okay,
no,
okay,
no, you
okay.
gotta take that back.
No, of course you can't. I like it. Make
Yeah,
South Africa great again. I think that there's so much to celebrate in this country, and I my wife's in the medical field, and she's done a lot of research in working internationally, and I've lived internationally maybe 3 or 4 times, and for longer periods of time than just holiday. And I always, when anyone asks me what it's like living overseas for extended periods of time, it's always, we don't know how good we have it in this country. I know that people
yes,
struggle, and there are people far less fortunate than us that I don't know the answer. I always try and ask people that, I mean, if you had a magic wand, what would you do to change the situation for people a lot less fortunate than us, in this country? And the answer, I've never got a satisfying answer, because I don't think there is one. I think
there
it's
isn't
just,
one, yeah.
there's just a lot of giving back and being as caring for your fellow person around you in your social circles, and just trying to be kind, really, is my
Just be
answer. I know
kind.
it's, yeah, and that's why I appreciate this call so much. You've been very kind to take the time to speak to me. One day when you're a media mogul, we can go back and we can say the first really terrible interview she ever had was this show.
Definitely. I can't wait for that. And we'll have a glass of wine just to toast.
Awesome. I'll be sure to send you a bottle of wine, as long as you promise to take me through that the 2015 and the 2012 experiences. I'd love
I
to
will.
dig a little bit deeper into that.
I will.
Awesome. And then lastly, Rata, I have a segment in the podcast that's called Time with Hazi's Mozzies. This is Hazi the giraffe. And I
Okay.
absolutely, my pet peeve when I travel is mosquitoes. I hate them. My wife's also very allergic. So whenever she gets bitten, then it's complaints for 5 hours,
Oh,
rightfully so,
wow.
because she just swells up and it's terrible. So I try and avoid mosquitoes like anything. What's your pet peeve when traveling? It doesn't have to do with mosquitoes or insects or creepy crawlies.
Uh, Rude people. I actually think South Africans are very um, friendly, but
Hmm.
most countries, people don't greet. Like, let's say you're running, like when I run, I'll greet, or,
Mm,
if people interact, come into the lift, or, those sort of weird interactions where people don't actually expect to say hi, or even if you make eye contact, you
mm,
make eye contact and people just walk past you. And I find that often, obviously, in the UK and Australia, and where's the other place that I was going to say? Hong Kong, those, I don't know, and I know it's just the cultural mishap, but
mm.
I'm so used to it in South Africa that when I go overseas, I always have to like just they don't understand. You guys are not from the same cultures, so just get over it. But yeah, that's my pet peeve.
Nice. I had an experience in China. I ran onto the train, and they overpack the trains. You kind of have to like when I say I ran onto the train, the doors are open and there are people right up against the doors, so you have to run and jump and then force
Yeah.
yourself into the train, and then the doors are closing, sort of like squishing you in. And I made eye contact with this gentleman, and he just looked at me and he was like, and he just spat, and he spat straight onto my foot. I was like, what is happening?
No way.
And this was normal. I couldn't believe it.
Oh,
So yes, I would only imagine that's probably quite rude. So yeah,
yeah, not even probably.
who knows? It might be a very pleasant way of greeting people in China. I'll try and experiment with that next
You
time.
need to
Just
do some
spitting on
market
people.
research.
Yes, I will do. But
All right.
yeah, Lerato, thank you so much for taking the time to chat. I won't keep you
Thanks
for
for the
too much
platform.
longer. And yeah, good luck with everything. I'm very excited to see kind of the media mogul in work. I'll be
No
following.
pressure.
I'll be following very closely. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. It was lovely catching up, and all the best for your future endeavors. And yeah, again, it's been great catching up and chatting to you a bit more.
Thanks so much, Peter. And yeah, I guess I'll see you on Instagram.
Yes. And I'll be sending you that bottle of wine. It's delicious. It's called Upland
Yeah,
Wineries. So I'll send you a
I'll
bottle
look
of
out
the
for it.
cool. All right,
Let's chat
Loretta.
then. All
All the
right,
best. Bye
bye.
now.